The 7 shadows were my finest warriors in the war against Queen Serenity. But she trapped them inside the white-hot light of the silver crystal, then hurled them into space. But somehow the crystal shattered into the 7 rainbow crystals. A shadow warrior locked into each piece. They disappeared into the Earth's atmosphere. Losing them remains a great bitterness to me, even now 1,000 years later. I want them free!
But how can we free them? Where are they now?
They were reborn in humans who carry the crystals but have no memory of their former existence.
But Earth is a vast planet with millions of people. Surely there is a way to distinguish them from all of the others.
You have shown great promise, Zoisite, so I will entrust you with a great mission.
Your wish is my command, my queen.
Hello and welcome back to Moonstar, a Sailor Moon podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Alex, and this week Chris and I will be covering the 21st episode of the Deep Dub titled Jupiter Comes Thundering In. This episode is one of the iconic Sailor Scout debut episodes, as well as introducing the audience to a new arc in the series, the Rainbow Crystals arc. For those of us who watched this as a kid, I would love to hear in a comment somewhere how this episode made you feel. How did Lita, like a character like her, make you feel? Lita or Sailor Jupiter. Chris and I get into all of that and more in today's episode, so let's just get into it. What do you remember about interviewing Susan Roman?
I mean, it was still relatively early on when in my interviewing. I didn't have an external webcam or an external microphone or lighting. It went great. Like I figured it would. It was cool to be, one of the first people to talk to her about stuff publicly, out like her on camera and other voiceover career outside of Sailor Moon. I remember one of the big things I remember was that she didn't have any idea why about the content of Sailor Stars, like why it wouldn't have been brought over.
Right.
Yeah,
which I think is. I wanted to ask you about that. Have you confirmed that was the actual reason with anyone from the show?
I mean, I don't think anybody from the original team would know, but I mean, I know that would have to be the reason why.
Well, because my thought is it's twofold. I think that was, probably a big part of it, but I think equally the fact that she's completely naked, along with the child being naked for the last 4 episodes. There was no way they could have brought that over, without spending thousands upon thousands of dollars to airbrush it out, right?
Yeah.
And then it would have probably looked insane.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably both of those things, but I think, because I was playing it out in my head and in the context of the 90s, if the end of the show didn't feature the nudity, I think they might have gotten away with it, but they would have had to really do a lot of story gymnastics with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get it to clear, and it would have been really weird.
Yeah.
But I do think you're right. I think that's probably a big part of it. I'm surprised that none of the actors really seem to know anything about it.
Well, I know Linda already knew, and I think Katie already knew when I talked to her too. I just think certain ones don't, and some of them do.
Also, it's probably a touchy subject. I don't know. I feel like they're more public than we are in the public eye, so they're probably more cautious about talking about things like that. And also, they're older than us. not in a shady way. They just are. But yeah, I thought that was cool. I thought she was so open about everything.
Yeah.
And she said you brought up stuff that no one ever asks about. I think, what was the first movie you talked about? Rabid?
Yeah, that was her first role in anything.
And what year did that come out? Do you remember?
77, I think.
So it's a 1970s. She's on camera. It's a horror film?
Yeah.
And do you remember when she, just to shorthand it for people who didn't listen, maybe jumped into the voice acting roles?
She started like predominantly doing voiceover in the like early to mid 80s.
Right. And something everybody needs to go listen to it who hasn't yet, but one of the things I loved that she talked about was how much the fight scenes would take out of her, like emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
But then like you would lose how she explained losing the high register first and all of that, and it's because of all the physical, like the blow, not the attack names, but the blows, right? Like the dodging and the punching and everything. And she said sometimes she'll hear or she'll see voice acting now, and someone's like falling off a building and they're like, yeah. You know? And she talks about how, no, you have to really go there when you're doing these lines. You have to feel like if you don't hit this, like the character is like fighting to not be dead, basically, and it needs to come through.
Yeah.
Is kind of the shorthand of it. And I think that's why, I think you even said to her, she is one that has always stood out to me out of the original cast as one of the strongest. Don't you think?
Yeah, totally. Like I love all the attack names and transformation call-outs that Susan did. I think even though I've interviewed Amanda Miller, the redub Makoto too, it's like I've just always loved Susan the best.
It's hard to compare. You know what I mean? It's almost like apples to oranges. Because also they were dubbing this in a different time and doing like the Rhythmo Band thing, which they talked a lot about. I find that so fascinating because I'm a musician, so I know I would understand the timing of it. But what she said was so cool because it was like, I just needed someone to explain it to me a specific way. And then I was able to do it. But when she first saw it, she was like, oh no. Can you explain to people what a Rhythmo Band is?
Yeah, so the way that the original Sailor Moon was dubbed, it's and I think some studios around the US are back to doing it for anime, but it's where someone had written the lines, the translated lines into English onto like a piece of, I don't know, like film strip or paper or something, and then it would scroll along like a karaoke machine almost, and then when the words were highlighted, then that's when the actor would say them, and you had to do it obviously like in a set amount of time to match the lip movements.
Yeah, and in my mind I'm picturing it as like the words are coming from the right side of the screen or whatever, moving to the left, and there's like a mark, and then when it gets to that mark on the left side, that's when they're supposed to speak. And she said something like about that method allows them to do more, to develop like the character vocally for some reason, especially when you're recording like individually and not in a group. I don't know why, but it's probably the musicality.
Yeah.
Oh no, I remember what it was. She said the beeping method takes you out of it because you're like trying to stay in character, but then you have these like awful beeps in your ear, and it's like beep beep. Now you're supposed to be sad or whatever, and it kind of messes with the vibe. There's a lot of really interesting things in there, so I encourage people to go listen. Do you think there's any chance of getting a follow-up with her?
I'm sure if I wanted to, I could ask, but I don't know. Like, I'm like personally for me, like I think I've done everything that I could like to ask her about shit. So,
well, do you think she would do a more casual guest spot where she would just come on and chat?
Oh yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, let's save that until we've got more clout. You know, but like, because I don't want to come at them too early, and then they're like, "What is this nonsense?" But I think if it was kind of like we've completed season 1, or, you know, to celebrate a specific, maybe her Thunder Dragon episode or something, that would be cool. Because I'd love for her to even like comment on a specific episode, like I remember doing this, you know what I mean? Like that would be so cool. Anyway. Fingers crossed. Susan, if you're out there, I'm just saying, come on the show anytime. All right, so moving on from that. Casting, I have to say this. Casting is still open for a lot of roles. So go to Casting Call Club and audition for Sailor Moon Another Story, the series. The role of Sailor Moon is still open, which is the lead role. So, like, have at it. Because that's a hard one to cast. And I think there's a handful of other main roles still open too, so get on that. Do you have anything coming up you want to tell people about?
Well, besides the con, which we've already talked about, I have my next interview in 2 days. It's with Allison Keith, who she doesn't do a ton of voice acting anymore, but she's probably best known for being Misato in the original dub of Evangelion. So she's one of the last like main cast members from Evangelion that I haven't talked to yet. And she was in a lot of other dubs of 90s and 2000 shows.
Oh wow, we might have to do, because you know how the holiday specials I go like off kilter,
Yeah,
and we just do non-Sailor Moon content. I might start dotting in some of that other stuff that I think people would appreciate, because I swear a lot of Sailor Moon fans must love Evangelion too, don't you think?
I mean it's a wildly different kind of show, but yeah, I mean it's like another one of those.
It is. But also, not if you compare it to, like, the end of Season 3.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, Sailor Moon is one of those shows that kind of is, like, goofy and ridiculous, and then when it gets really serious, it gets, like, super, super serious, like, really fast. So I think it does kind of have a touch of the Evangelion vibe to it, but just not, like, most of the time. Evangelion is exciting. What's some other stuff she did that you remember?
Yeah, it's stuff that like I don't think you would know, but it's stuff that I like. Megazone 23, Golden Boy, which Golden Boy is pretty famous now for like pop culture accounts.
What is Golden Boy?
Oh, it's a short like 6-episode series, I think, from the mid 90s. It's a romantic comedy. It's about a boy that has, or a guy that has, as he like goes through life, he has different encounters with these really attractive women, and he's really perverted and horny, and they kind of like they all end up either lusting after him or like putting him in his place in some way, and it's really well animated, and the character designer is the same guy that did Cowboy Bebop.
Oh, I'm in already. I love the animation for Cowboy Bebop so much. Okay. That's also, like, that premise is so bizarre, but, I guess it's not that bizarre. To me, it's not something I would normally watch, but because it's only 6 episodes and it's that animator, I might actually, if I can find it. Where is it hard to find?
No, it's like, especially nowadays, like, everybody knows what it is.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask about something else, but whatever. We can bring it up later. Because I have a lot of notes about this episode, so...
Yeah, I figured.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay.
Things heat up fast today on Sailor Moon as a new, more relentless henchman of the Negaverse appears. And a fearsome girl warrior. Is she friend or foe? Is she after the rainbow crystals too? We'll be right back, so stick around!
What is the Japanese title?
Jupiter, the Powerful Girl in Love.
That's cute. The English one is Jupiter Comes Thundering In.
Yeah, I remembered, yeah.
Yeah, which I always confuse as being the title of the VHS tape, which it's not. Actually, hold on one second. I can go grab that. Okay. This episode is available for people who are trying to find it in, like, a legit format. On the 2 VHS tapes, Jupiter and Venus arrive, which is the Buena Vista one, the hot pink spine with the holographic detail. And that one just gives you 2 episodes. It's Jupiter's debut and then Venus, obviously. And then the other one is Introducing Sailor Jupiter, is the actual title. Hold on. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I maybe muted you. The Introducing Sailor Jupiter tape was, I think I told you, my first one that I got at the Mall of America. I think I got it with The Power of Friendship also.
Okay.
Wasn't this one of your first, either this episode, this is one of your first things, right?
What do you mean, first things?
First tapes that you had.
Oh, I remember having it. I don't remember, like, what happened to it, but yeah, that's one of the season 1 tapes that I had, too.
And it has Jupiter's debut, and then we get... I don't know what the power of friendship is. But we get Mercury's one, then there's an art one that... I don't know, this one has a lot of good episodes on it. And then the other one, I always used to see in Blockbuster. Did you ever go to Blockbuster?
Yeah, we had one in my hometown.
Did you ever see the Sailor Moon stuff there?
Yeah, there weren't tapes, but I remember I think the only Sailor Moon thing they had at the Blockbuster local to me was the first volume on DVD of S.
That makes sense, because like towards the end of Blockbuster they were scarcer and scarcer, and I think when they converted, because there was always tons of VHS from it, or at least enough to keep people, entertained. But then when they went to the DVD, it kind of was on the way out already. But yeah, so that was my experience with these. It's also, I think, on the same DVD, like Introducing Sailor Jupiter. I think they did a DVD of that too. So that's where you can get the English 90s version of it. And yeah, let's just get into the notes, because I think we both really enjoy this episode.
Yeah.
What is the first thing that we see?
It's Queen Beryl summoning their unnamed god.
It doesn't have a name in the Japanese.
If it does, it isn't yet.
Oh, okay. They are already calling her Queen Metalia.
I call upon you, mighty Negaforce. It is I, Queen Beryl, come to seek your wisdom. I offer you this energy. In exchange for your advice on your glorious quest, I command you come forth!
I've been expecting you, my queen. Your search for energy has been proceeding well. Finally, you've collected enough to create a powerful tool for your mission!
Oh? And what is that?
And she's like giving her all this energy, right?
Yeah.
What does the god say that she needs to do?
Find the rainbow crystals and the seven monsters that contain the rainbow crystals, and then that's when the silver crystal will reveal itself.
Does it reference like creating a new homing crystal?
No, that just ends up happening.
Oh, okay. She's like instructs her to do that in this one. And so this was a correction corner for me. This is the dark crystal. Nephlite's crystal was the star crystal. They look the same. I think that's why I was like, what's going on here? Also, I have a weird memory block with Nephlite's arc. I always forget it, like, almost immediately after I watch it, because it's probably traumatizing. I don't know.
Oh.
But it's weird. And then, okay, so they're the Rainbow Warriors or the Shadow Warriors, because I think they call them both things at some point. And what do they call them in the Japanese? Do they have a title?
It's just the seven monsters.
The 7 monsters. Oh, and later they say the 7 shadows. When we first meet Lita in English, Makoto in Japanese, my favorite line from this moment, when it's like all the guys attacking her, or attacking Serena, and she like comes up and fights them, she goes,
Don't call me bitch! Take that! Now apologize and then move your sorry carcass! Are you all right? Yeah, thanks. Take care, kid.
and then like starts,
Yeah.
going off. What's your impression of that scene?
I love it. Like, it's one of my favorites in the entire series, and it's animated super well, even though pretty much all the animation in that little scene of her beating them up is all like still frame images, but they're all drawn really well.
They're drawn really well, and it's manipulated with the background and moved in a way that I actually never noticed they were still images. I never thought about it.
Yeah.
Until you pointed that out. I think that's a technique they use with her fighting a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of works. Oh, and then they really focus in on the rose earrings.
Yeah.
Oh, what beautiful earrings! Wow, she's amazing!
I sense something.
What do you know about her earrings?
Well, I know like it happens in this episode, but there's multiple times in the series where she like throws them like throwing stars. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I think they're supposed to be like kind of sharp or something. Apparently,
They are. I've heard. I'm trying to see if I can confirm it. But they're supposed to be scented too, or I think that might be a manga thing.
Oh.
But like, I think Usagi comments on it that they like smell like roses as well. But yeah, she uses them to fight, and I think it's one of the first times we have. No, it's not. This would be to me kind of adjacent to how Rei has her talismans that she can use out of her transformation. This is just like a personality, or whatever you mean. You know what I mean? Character thing specific to her. What I had never really thought about this perspective until Susan talked about it in her interview. She was saying how the character of Lita or Sailor Jupiter at that time was so important and so impactful because, and she figured that out through having to think tall to portray the character, where she was like, well, I've never been tall before. And then I had to talk to people about it. And they were basically like, yeah, I've always felt like this big, lanky girl, like out of place, awkward. Like sometimes you tend to have anger issues because of it or whatever. And she was like, this was sort of the first time a character like that was really on TV in a way that was not ridiculous, you know?
Yeah.
And was kind of celebrated. And it's something that we personally can't really relate to, probably. But I definitely had friends that really connected with this character, and I could see that kind of like outsider mentality, whether it's from being too tall or just being different or whatever. She really hit home for a lot of girls at that time, in a way. And also her audacity of being so like what some people might characterize as masculine traits, right? Like being able to fight and take care of herself in that way, complemented by also still being girly with her like cooking affinity, and she's kind of like a homemaker almost, you know, like that's sort of part of her personality. So I think her character specifically, they're all important, but she was very important at that time, at least in 90s American culture, I can say. Just in terms of representation, which it sounds funny now because there's so much, right?
Yeah.
And so it's almost hard for people who are younger to maybe imagine what that's like. But like, really think about it. If you're someone who maybe looks like her, you're a girl who's in like 5th grade and you're like already taller than everybody around you, and they're making fun of you for it. And then you see her show up on TV, portrayed how she is. You've never seen anything like that positive before. Like, I don't know. I get that part of it. So it makes me really appreciate her character in a whole different way. What aspects of Sailor Jupiter do you connect with?
Probably, I mean, I was gonna say it if you didn't say it, but definitely the, obviously being the masculine parts from, you know, just being male and like being into some more male stuff despite being gay, since like my favorite music genre is like older rock music, and but then I'm also, you know, I have a lot of the feminine things, like I love baking, and I like giving guys roses if they're important to me, and so it's just stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think that she probably, characters like her as well, helped give us a little more freedom with our gender expression in ways that it's like probably harder for us to track it directly, but I would say that she definitely helped push that forward a little.
Yeah.
What would you say? What are the 7 Shadow Warriors?
Well, originally they were the like strongest monsters that worked for the Dark Kingdom, and then they all inhibit the rainbow crystals.
Right. And they were, like, around back when they attacked in the past on the moon. And then they got reborn into humans who don't have memory of their former existence, but they gain powers, right? Do all of them gain some kind of a power or no?
I mean, I don't remember specifically, but I'm sure that they do, since Joe did.
I know 2 that did. I can't remember the rest. Who is the first human target?
Here, this crystal is yours. It possesses special powers enabling it to track down the rainbow crystals. I trust you'll know what to do.
Of course, Your Majesty. Dark Crystal, I command you! Show me one of the 7 rainbow crystal carriers! This man shall be the first.
Joe.
Is his name just Joe in the Japanese?
Yeah, or like Crane Game Joe or whatever the fuck.
Crane Game Joe. They call him Game Machine Joe in the English one. Oh, and then, so now we're finally just meeting Lita at school, which took us a while to get there. But what does Melvin say about her to Serena?
That she should be careful of approaching her, since she got kicked out of her last school for beating somebody up or getting in a fight.
And what does Serena do with that information?
She just doesn't really care, because she's so focused on wanting to eat lunch with her.
That's what it was. Okay. Because in the English, they don't really reference the food that much.
Oh, the karate maniac! I wonder what she's doing here.
Hi, Serena!
No, don't creep up on me like that!
I didn't creep up on you. I was just going to warn you about her.
What?
She's new here. According to my notes, her name's Lita. She got transferred from her old school for fighting. Everybody's keeping their distance. You should do the same. This girl sounds like major trouble. Oh, where'd she go? Serena, have you lost your mind? Don't sneak up on her.
She just, like, wants to go talk to her. And
Yeah.
she's just so friendly, and she's basically like, I don't care. And I actually really love people who are like that, because I think a lot of the time, especially with characters like Lita, their gossip gets around and it can be super damaging, and also usually there might be a small bit of truth to it, but it's like there's an expression that's like the concept of something or the idea of something is always 10 times worse than the reality. Like, you know how you build up stuff in your head to be like, oh, I don't want to do that thing. Oh, it's going to be so terrible. And then you do it and you're like, why was I being a baby about this?
Yeah.
It's that kind of idea. But hold on, I just lost my train of thought. Why was I talking about that? What did I say before?
Like talking about the scene, you mean?
Oh yeah, the gossip thing. And how, like, Serena just blatantly was like, well, let me just go tell her what everyone's saying and see what she has to say about it. You know, basically get the other side of the story. And I think she just, like, because it came off to me in the English, like, because Lita was just so friendly, or because Serena was just so friendly, they kind of passed over it. She was like, yeah, it's sort of true, but, and then she was like, oh, that looks good.
Yeah.
And got, like, distracted by the food. And then they were kind of friendly right away. It's so... Did you have a friend like Lita growing up?
Like a female friend.
Or a male friend that fits the persona.
No, yeah, I guess I did have a female friend that was like that.
What was it like having someone like that around you?
It was fun. I mean, we weren't like... I think I met her when I was in 6th grade and lasted all throughout high school. And I remember, like, the first time that we met, because my voice wasn't like this, but it was already lower than a lot of people when I was in 6th grade. And then she just said, like, say something, and I did. And then she would, like, hit me. And then, like, because she was, like, so surprised. But that was, like, her way of being, like, surprised.
Well, no, there's like a thing. It's like cuteness aggression.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of that? I heard they were talking about that on a podcast this week. That's funny. I met someone similar around the same age, and there is something to be said about having someone around you who will go to the mat for you in that way. I mean, I don't know that your friend was necessarily like that, but mine was kind of. And it is nice, but at the same time, as you get older, it's kind of like there are certain characteristics that I think Lita displays that as her character ages, I think would fade or adjust a little. Yeah. Do you agree? Mm-hmm. And I think it's fine that a character her age would have these issues also. Yeah. Because it gets real, you know. I did think it was funny how direct Serena was with her, though. Because she's just like...
Here, have a seat. Is it true you were kicked out of your old school for fighting? Well,
she's gone
sort
bonkers.
of. Do you want some of my homemade muffins? Yeah! I mean, I don't usually eat sweets, but if you insist...
No, don't!
Ooh, they've got chocolate chips, too! Thanks, I made them myself. Usually I'm really hungry and I eat a ton, but everyone's been so mean I lost my appetite. That's because they're scared of you. I mean, they're scared of your reputation. Oh? There's a full report on you already. Word gets around fast in this place. Oh, well, maybe I should transfer to a foreign school. Are you crazy? What for? You'll be the mysterious new girl. You mean the karate maniac? I'd call you that.
Only Serena could make friends with a martial arts psychopath.
In the English, Lita was... She's like, oh, what's everybody saying? And Serena's like, that's you're a monster and you're violent and you're probably going to kill people. Can I have your, like, rice or whatever? She's just so casual about it. And I thought that was really cute. And they end up at the arcade where, of course, she has gamer rage, which I thought was funny. And definitely fit her personality. What is Serena and Ray's argument about here?
Oh, it's just... In the Japanese, I'm sure it's similar in English. It's just when Ami and Rei show up, Usagi introduces Rei to Mako as the girl that's always mean, and then that's how they start fighting, because Rei's like, oh, when have I ever actually been mean to you? And then it just goes on.
Okay, they were arguing about study buddies, which I love that was a thing. Yeah. They were just like, study buddies is a thing. That's how they're explaining why they're randomly just meeting together. I don't know. I think that's cool though, that they, with those fights, it doesn't really matter what it's about. Right. Like, so they can just do whatever they wanted really, and it still kind of gives the same vibe. Oh, trivia for whoever wants to try and guess. Can you name 2 of the toys that Joe ends up getting from the machine? And you can try. Do you know?
I know one of them is a Sailor Mercury plush.
There's also a Sailor V plush, a dinosaur. There's a little star dude in one of the flashbacks and all kinds of other stuff. But Mercury and Sailor V were the 2 that I thought were the most significant. We get a Lita classic, or a Jupiter classic here, where... What's her reaction to seeing him?
That she thinks she's really attracted to him.
And he looks like her old boyfriend. Does she say that in the Japanese?
Well, yeah, in the Japanese, whenever she says that, it says, he looks just like the upperclassman that broke my heart.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a through line with her. It's always like, oh, he looks like that guy who messed me up. Which, unfortunately... For a lot of people, not just girls, I think when you're young, sometimes that'll happen where it's like you really like somebody and then it doesn't work out with them and people will just go from person to person, like trying to find someone who's just like that person. Yeah. I personally, thank God, have never been like that, but I have seen it in other people and it seems exhausting to me. Not a read, just truly like it doesn't seem like a fun time. But yeah, I think it is a very real characteristic, though. And another one of those things that would probably just naturally fade. Yeah. As she got older. And she would, like, find her person and be happy. Do you know who voiced Joe?
In all languages?
In English.
Yeah. In the redub, he's voiced by Grant George, who's a pretty famous anime voice actor.
Do you know who did him in the original?
Yeah, it was Tony Daniels, who was the voice of a Jadeite and Wise Man, too.
I thought it was Jadeite. Because I was like, he sounds familiar, but I can't quite place it. I thought he did a great job. Yeah. I enjoyed him as Joe a lot. Zoisite, is this her first time ever attacking by herself / himself?
I think so, yeah. It would be, yeah.
I thought so too, because I was trying to remember if she did anything solo in, like, the part with oh, and that, yeah, anyway, never mind. I was like, that's jumping ahead. Wrong episode. Scratch that. The rainbow crystal reveal animation when she's using her little thing to, like, pull it out of them, I thought was really cool.
Yes, this is the human who bears the rainbow crystal. Now's my chance.
Hey, whoa! Smooth move, Joey boy. Trying to escape, are you? Don't worry, we'll get you good home.
Excellent. There's no one else around.
Wah!
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to frighten you.
What do you want?
You're about to find out.
Hey, I don't want any trouble. Just let me get by.
Now to retrieve the rainbow crystal from this human weakling. Queen Beryl will be very pleased.
What's happening to me? I feel so strange.
Who animated this?
It's another one of the people that we've talked about a lot. That's my second favorite behind Ito, is Hisashi Kagawa.
I couldn't tell if it was Ito or not, because there were so many good scenes in it. I thought it might have been her, but then we get this fight between human Lita, or Makoto, and Zoisite. And this is where we see the earring throw, which I think is, like, legendary, especially the way it's animated. And then it cuts Zoisite's face, which, of course, is offensive. How dare you. And straight up, Zoisite flees. And then I think people... She, not defeated, but fended off a, like, villain, not a monster, untransformed without even knowing she was a Sailor Scout by herself.
Yeah.
It's kind of impressive. I'm just saying. And then I just wrote LMFAO Serena. Oh, because after they're leaving, like, I think Joe just runs off and leaves the bag of toys behind, and she's like,
Oh, Lita! Does this mean I can keep all the prizes?
Serena, be serious. There are strong forces coming from both of them.
I'm just like, okay. I thought that was cute. And we see Joe walking around. What would you call this state? He's like half awakened.
Yeah, it doesn't realize it.
Yeah, and it's like, I just wrote down symptoms, like what it seems like he's experiencing, which would be, he's moody, but it seems like he's trying to control it. It seems like his chest pain and rapid heartbeat, and he's like mistaking it. Like, he thinks, like, is this because I like Lita? I don't know what's going on. But at first he's like trying to get her to back off, and she's just straight up like, no, which I was like, boundaries. But she follows him, and eventually he invites her into the cafe. What does he end up telling her about there?
That he's always had a psychic ability since he was a kid, and that's why he can, like, win the crane games so easily.
What is his ability specifically?
That he can, like, lift things with one of his hands.
Yeah, it's like, it looks to me like telekinetic, but not that strong, right?
Yeah.
Like, small objects, lightweight, and honestly, he kind of figured out, like, the best use for it, frankly. Like, what else are you going to do with that? Other than, like, I feel like it would make cleaning really easy.
Yeah.
That would be kind of nice. After that, and he shows that off, who shows up?
Zoisite just randomly shows up, and Mako thinks that he's a waiter. And I thought it was really interesting that I remember even, like, the first time I saw this, that it's really bold of them to just show up in, like, a public restaurant like that, because I don't think that happened with any other villain in the series.
I thought so too. The boldness level is, like, growing with them, but also this brings me back to when we have things like Molly just being flown through the sky in the middle of the night in a bubble.
Yeah.
And, like, I think that by this point in that world, it's almost like, we better call the insurance company and report that a crazy monster jumped through our window again. You know what I mean? Like, I almost feel like it's straight up just an annoyance to them, and they're like, can you guys, like, take this intergalactic battle outside? That's how I have to think, because the people just act like it's normal.
Yeah.
Don't they? I mean, there's sort of a, like, celebrity effect. I get that. Like, a hyped up energy when they're like, oh, it's Sailor Moon or whatever, but it doesn't seem like they're, like, bamboozled. You know? I don't know, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, people react more naturally in this instance, in that scene.
Yeah. Oh, after that scene's over, they end up outside, and this is where Zoisite gets Joe cornered and finishes the whole awakening thing, which again is animated really cool. And this specific moment where Sailor Moon shows up, this like
Mine at last. Drop that crystal! It's Sailor Moon!
little clip of audio was used either in the newscast segment we played in Fight to the Finish or a random like Toonami commercial. I can't remember, but it really sticks out to me. So little details like that, if anyone cares, I just thought that was interesting. I really like all the sound effects during this fight. I don't know if they added them or not. Is there game sound effects in the Japanese version?
Oh, like when the monster is yeah.
Like the beeping and all. I love that. What did you think of this battle? Like before she transforms.
You're too fast! Luna!
No bonus round for you, loser.
New player's up now, and you're headed for a bad fall!
The fourth sign!
Yeah!
The game's over!
But I'm not out. Round 2's coming at you.
Watch out!
Help! Someone help!
I mean, the monster game Sen is one of my favorite monsters throughout the whole entirety of the anime.
What makes him one of your favorites?
I just think it's way more unique, and I like the classic video game weapon additions that they have.
Like the hammer and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. He has like that thing that shoots out and you can grab. Was it a grapple?
Yeah.
Like you grab somebody or whatever. I thought his design was really, really cool well, as we get through, we'll compare the warriors later, but from what I remember, he is one of the most interesting of the rainbow crystal monsters. And Lita takes him on her own, even though it's a monster, which, in the defense of the scene where we saw her fight off Zoisite just looks like a straight-up person that's kind of flying.
Yeah.
So I would be like, how are they doing that? That's weird. Maybe they have a jetpack. Let me still fight them. Or whatever. But, like, this monster, you're like, whoa. At least in my mind, it would be a little more startling.
Yeah.
But she goes after it, and Luna interrupts her. And she's like, before you kick its ass, why don't you transform? And gives her the pen.
Luna! Someone help! He's too strong!
Hold on! I'll get him!
No, wait!
What?
Lita, use this to transform. It's your best hope.
How'd you learn to talk?
No time to explain, Lita. Just trust me on this one. Take this stick and do what I say. Like Sailor Moon, you're destined to defend peace and justice. Now say, Jupiter power!
Jupiter power!
Lita, Sailor Jupiter!
Jupiter Smooper.
Watch it!
And just, how do you feel about Sailor Jupiter's Jupiter power transformation?
It's great. Like, I don't know, I think it's more iconic maybe than the way that the other 4 main girls come to transform and for the first time, I think.
The Awakening, you mean? Yeah. I would say, for me, it would go Jupiter, Amy, Venus, and then Mars. I like the Mars episode. It just, when you put them next to each other, it ends up there.
Yep.
That's how I would do it. But yeah, no, she has the most, I think I would agree. Because she's already doing the Sailor Scout thing without being one.
Yeah.
And I think that's why she's so great. She is another one, by the way, as an adult that has morphed into being one of my favorites, where I was kind of like a Strictly Mercury kid, And as an adult, it's like Mercury, Moon, Jupiter.
Yeah.
Neptune is up there, but like, also as an adult, sometimes I think the outers can be. I'm like, you guys are like 18. You need to calm down. Acting like you're like 58 or whatever. And then we get her first Supreme Thunder crash.
On behalf of Jupiter, I call upon the forces of thunder and lightning to vanquish this evil! Supreme Thunder Crash!
Ugh, my circuits!
You whipped him just like
I
that?
don't know, I guess so.
Am I correct? Her basic, like, season 1 attack is the longest besides Sailor Moon, right?
Yeah, I think so. Like, if it's fully played out, yeah.
And the others, like, Mercury's is the shortest, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe Mars, I couldn't tell. But then, yeah, and Jupiter's is the only one they sometimes cut. And I've noticed the same thing with Sparkling Wide Pressure, too. It has, like, a full and a short version.
Yep.
And I personally think the way that they animated Supreme Thunder is some of the best animation out of all of the attack sequences, specifically the beginning part when her hair starts floating. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's really cool too, because whoever the character designer is, when those first transformations and attacks fall, like whoever that falls onto, then obviously anytime that bank sequence is used again, then it's like it's always in their art style.
True, so it's never gonna get like messed up or messed
Yeah.
with. Ito did those, right?
No, for Sparkling Wide Pressure and Supreme Thunder, that was Kagawa. That was the guy that did the current episode.
Oh, he's like, if you had to rank them, would he be like right under her?
Yeah, and he also did the moon healing escalation too.
I love that attack. We'll get to that. Okay, yeah. And now that you're saying it, I can see the Ito touches and the Super S attacks because I'm like picturing them in my head.
Yeah,
we'll get to those later. But yeah, so Supreme Thunder for me is one of my favorites out of the basic attacks.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to... Let's rank them when we get to Venus. We'll wait for that. I gotta be fair. But then, after we see her first Supreme Thunder Crash, which is one of my favorite uses of it in general, we get to see the first use of the Crescent Moon Wand, which is supposed to, in the English they say it represents the leader.
Yeah.
But somehow they're not sure if the leader is Sailor Moon, even though she's the one that uses the stick. Is it like that in the Japanese?
No, it's like Luna says, now that you have the moon stick and there's all 4 Sailor Scouts, like they don't realize that there's gonna be one more. But yeah, Luna says, like, now that everyone's assembled, like you're the leader now.
I think that's interesting because they were basically, there's like a whole mini plot line, if I'm correct. We'll see, I guess, but there's like an argument over who should be the leader. And at some point I remember Ray kind of like throwing a fit over it because she's like, Serena's not capable, and we'll get there, I think. Unless that already happened.
No, I don't think so.
I don't think it did. But I love the Crescent Moon Wand, and we see the first iteration of moon healing escalation or activation.
The only possible way you could stop him is by making him human again.
How are we supposed to do that? Oh no, he's getting ready to attack again! Huh?
No, he won't!
Wow, what's this, Luna?
It's the Crescent Moon Wand. Take it and say Moon Healing Activation. It will break the spell.
Moon Healing Activation!
No!
It's Joe, he's back! Wow, cool.
Which, the second one has the silver crystal in
Yeah.
it. Do you have a preference between the two?
No, I mean, they look exactly the same besides the little added touch.
I straight up prefer the first one because I think the crystal added touch is like extra. It annoys me. I don't know why. I think it's because it like... It's just one of those instances where I think less is more. And I think it was so intricately done with the crescent moon and all of the, like, falling dust and all of that, that adding the crystal bursts was just, like, a little extra. Like, I don't need it. It's not bad. But I'm just like, whatever. I prefer the first one. And out of her, she gets, this is the first time Sailor Moon receives, what do you want to call this? An attack weapon? Because her tiara was just part of her outfit, right?
A wand, yeah.
A wand, which turns into a scepter, which turns into another scepter, which turns into a kaleidoscope sword.
Yeah.
Which turns into a really big scepter. No, a medium scepter, which gets bigger later. She's got a journey to go on. Anyway, out of all of the wands, do you have a top 3?
Top 3, yeah. First would be the Cosmic Heart wand. Second would be the Kaleidoscope rod. And then third, I guess, would be probably the Moonstick, yeah.
I think I would go Moonstick, Spiral Heart, Princess, the Season 2 one. I really enjoy. What's it called? Moon Scepter, right?
I think so.
I like that one more specific, not necessarily for the design of the scepter, though, but I like the ending animation where it's like...
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it shoots the little, like, what is it? Like a heart, crescent moon, and a star.
Yeah.
I don't know. I've always loved that one so much. I'm sorry, I have to, like, stop playing her attacks in my brain. Okay. I prefer... Oh, I said that already. Okay, so who's Lita's new crush now that all this is done?
Matoki. Or Andrew.
Yeah, they end up back at the arcade, and what does she say about him?
The same exact thing.
Yeah, he looks just like my ex-boyfriend or whatever she said in Japanese before. Before we touch on the Sailor Says, let's just go through your overall thoughts on this one.
I've always loved this episode. It's one of my top 10 for Sailor Moon for sure. It's one that I've recommended to people just to watch, even if they don't want to watch like very much a Sailor Moon. Like it's a fun one to experience for the first time for sure. It's animated super well. There's a lot of my favorite like images of Makoto in the whole series are also in this episode. I wish that I had seen more cells from it, but I haven't. I've actually seen the cell. The only like really nice shot of her that I've seen from this episode is the close up of her when she sees Joe and she has the like huge doe eyes. But
was
yeah,
it a
like,
cell or was it a sketch set?
Oh no, it was the cell. Yeah.
Ooh. Have you ever? Cells are way more expensive, right?
I mean, yeah, like, well, yeah, like if you want something like that, yeah.
That's a shame. I'm not surprised that there aren't more because this is such a good episode. I would imagine they probably sold a lot of it right away. What do you think happens to most of it though?
Well, back then it was, and I think this was the case with like every big anime. It's like the nicest, most iconic stuff of every character was usually either kept by somebody who worked on it or somebody that was like on the animation team.
As it should, yeah.
Yeah. Or it was if that wasn't it, then it was given to like a young son or daughter of somebody who worked on the anime production that was interested in it more.
Okay, I'm completely down with that. I would have been sad if it was one of the like American ways where they're just like, yeah, once it's done, we burn it in a fire so no one can ever accidentally make money off it. You know what I mean? Like, no, I'm glad it got given to people who would really care about it. Like, what was Susan Roman saying? What she was describing were graded collectible cards. By the way, they're in card slab. They call them slabs. And that means that the cards she was given were graded by a professional that can set a value on it and say, like, this is how much it costs definitively, basically. Mm-hmm. And she was saying, it sparks, like, interest for me, but I think not the way it would spark joy for somebody else. And that's, like, why she's thinking, or she was saying she was going to try to give them away. I had a reason for bringing that up. What were we talking about?
The cells.
Oh, yeah. So, like, I think those kind of cells, or just production artwork going to those people, it's going to spark so much joy for them to have that forever.
Yep.
And it's better than it just being, you know, tossed in the trash. That would be heartbreaking. What do you know what anything about original animation that she was talking about?
Who?
Susan Roman.
What?
It was like where they would go in and record, and then they would animate based on what they recorded.
Oh, that's how voiceover for like non-anime is always done.
Oh, so well, she said they don't do it anymore for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's like digital. I don't know.
Probably.
But she did say that that was the most fun she
right.
had as a voice actor, because you just get to be totally creative.
Yep.
So just a little note to any animators out there who want to try something. I don't know, that might be interesting. Do a little mini original animation project with someone, right? It'd be kind of fun. All right, let's do the Sailor Says. Oh, before we do that, let's rate the episode. You first.
I'd give it a 5.
Same. 5. Shocking twist. We both love it. Yeah, it's a straight 5-star for me. So the Sailor Says is about fighting.
My friend Lita sure likes to fight. I'm sure glad she's on our side. But there are other ways to resolve differences, like talking it out. Well, maybe shouting it out. What's important is to listen and hear how the other person feels. You may find your differences aren't as bad as you think. Try listening first. That's what Sailor Moon says.
Sailor Moon says? How about Sailor Moon does?
And I just wrote fighting, but like don't take it out. What? Oh, fighting, but like don't talk it out. Listen to how the other person feels. This is basically the message, right? Yes, and do that. Do you agree? Let's do it. Let's give it a little more than that, though. In your life experience, because when people get angry, they temporarily lose like their typical personality, and in psychology, sometimes it can be described as like if someone is angry, they're not going to act rationally. So if you know that, you might want to like consider that when dealing with an angry person. But in your life, do you have any tools for handling when you get upset about things?
Yeah. There's the only thing that really would get me to that degree of like wanting to act out something physically is stuff like within my family. But anytime that's ever happened, it's there's a lot of stuff I do now. Like it's besides just the basic listening to music.
That's not anything to be laughed at, though, because I have to say, being a music teacher, I stopped listening to music for fun for a little while because I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it all day. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And prolonged periods of time without enjoyable music, it was like the most depressed I've ever been in my life. So there is and there's also a lot of science to back up that music is therapeutic. But yeah, what else do you do?
Well, since I've been doing interviews, like one thing I'll do sometimes is I'll just go back and like watch some of the compilations I've made, like of the funniest interview moments I've had so far, and that's also one thing that's helped me. It's just like if I'm really angry and going back and like watching some of the best ones that I've done and doing that.
That's really intuitive.
Yeah.
I think anytime we can redirect ourselves to laughter in any way possible, that's the easiest way to bring the tension down.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you've noticed when you're fighting with someone, if you get to a certain point where it's just starting to feel ridiculous, if you crack a joke in the right way, it'll dissipate everything.
Right.
You just have to not make the wrong joke. You know, like, don't be like, you know, a big jerk. But I think humor can really help a lot too. And also laughter is very contagious. So, like, a tool that I use when I'm feeling not even angry necessarily, but just whatever, and I need to redirect it, if there's something that I know always gets me laughing, even if I've seen it a million times, I'll put it on. Because it's not even necessarily the fact that you haven't heard it before. It is the musical rhythm of the way the person's delivering whatever it is. For some reason, our brain reacts to that and we naturally laugh. And it's like a thing.
Yeah.
And if you can get yourself laughing, those chemicals are going to rush into your brain and dissipate whatever it is. I don't know the proper term for it, but the chemical that's like fueling the anger.
Yeah.
Right? So anytime when you're because a lot of people struggle with anger for a lot of different reasons. We all do. And I think building tools to redirect it is all anyone can do. And I think the people who do have a handle on it just have done that. Right?
Yeah.
I don't think of it as a moral failing in any way. And I also don't think about it as something that can't be adjusted. Do you?
Right. No.
I might be wrong, though. I'm not a psychologist, so who knows? I think that's about it. Is there anything else you want to cover today for this?
I mean, it's related to Makoto, but I got the last sketch that I bought in.
Right. Has it posted on your gallery yet?
Yeah, I've had it up for a little bit.
Okay, cool. Then I pulled it earlier this morning. I'm gonna make the post today, probably.
Okay.
About that to get people like, oh, excited, and hear about it on the show. But yeah, I think that's it. All right. I'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye. That's it for this week's episode of Moonstar, a Sailor Moon podcast. This one clearly is a Moonstar favorite. Chris and I shockingly gave it 5 stars each. I'm sure a lot of the fans also love this one. If anybody doesn't love this one for any reason, I mean, feel free to let us know. It's always interesting to hear, a different perspective, but I don't know, there's not much to pick at, really. So, yeah, the only thing I want to remind anybody just a couple of reminders. Moonstar is currently casting for several projects, actually, on Casting Call Club. So go ahead and Google that, head over to the website and look for Sailor Moon, Another Story, the series, and then from there you can find some of the other stuff. But we're basically trying to build a team of creators who really, really love Sailor Moon and want to help create quality fan content for everybody that celebrates all areas of Sailor Moon. It doesn't have to just be the 90s dub. It can absolutely be the original Japanese. It can be the Viz dub. It can be the dub for Spanish, or whatever version you want to help elevate. I would love to hear from you, and let's get into it. So go on over to Casting Call Club. If you're a voice actor, a web designer, a game developer, anything content creatable, or whatever the word would be for it, let's talk. The main requirement is that you really care about Sailor Moon and have a fair amount of knowledge about it, though. So, yeah. And other than that, all I gotta say is I don't know. This week has been great because the show has started to kind of take off a little in 2023, and you might... I'm not going to say anything too early, but Chris and I might start to appear in other Sailor Moon related content with other creators and stuff, and it's just something that I'm kind of like, okay, here we go. And I'm a little intimidated, but I'm also excited, and I know that when you're intimidated by something like that, you should probably go for it and do the thing. That's how I ended up here. So if any of you guys out there are in a situation where you're presented with an opportunity that makes you nervous, don't let the nerves psych you out. That usually means you care, and you should definitely do it. And I'm not saying that from me. I'm just repeating stuff that people far more successful and far wiser than me have said. I just hear it and bank it, and then I share it with you. So there you go. Anyway, we gotta end the show, you guys. I'll see you next week. For more of me, Alex, for more of Chris, you can find him at Chris Mayek, ChrisMayek, on all the socials and YouTube. For more of me, Alex, you can find me at Alex Summers SFE on the socials. But most importantly, follow Moonstar, a Sailor Moon podcast on Facebook, and check out moonstarpod.com. We've got tons of free goodies there for you. It's going to be updated on a slow rolling basis. You know, there's a lot of projects going on here, but feel free to bookmark that and check out the content we've got there for you from time to time. And that's all the plugs we got for you today. I'll see you next week. Moonstar, a Sailor Moon podcast is created for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. We do not claim any ownership over the content used during the creation of this show. All audio clips and sound effects used during the creation of this episode of Moonstar belong expressly to the copyright holders.
Luna! Someone help! He's too strong! Hold on! I'll get him!
No, wait!
What?
Lita, use this to transform. It's your best hope.
How'd you learn to talk?
No time to explain, Lita. Just trust me on this one. Take this stick and do what I say. Like Sailor Moon, you're destined to defend peace and justice. Now say, Jupiter power!
Jupiter power!
Lead us, Sailor Jupiter!
Jupiter Schmupiter!
Watch out!
On behalf of Jupiter, I call upon the forces of thunder and lightning to vanquish this evil! Supreme Thunder Crash!
My circuits!
You whipped him just like
I
that?
don't know, I guess so.
No, not yet, Sailor Scouts. The only possible way you could stop him is by making him human again.
How are we supposed to do that? Oh no, he's getting ready to attack again. Huh?
No, he won't!
Wow, what's this, Luna?
It's the Crescent Moon Wand. Take it and say Moon Healing Activation. It will break the spell.
Moon Healing Activation!
No!
It's Joe, he's back! Wow, cool.
Sailor Jupiter, you were most impressive. You're going to be a great Sailor Scout.
Thank you, Luna. I'm glad you think so.
Sailor Moon, the Crescent Moon Wand is a very important element of our mission because it's the symbol of our leader.
Leader, no way, not me.
But it is your destiny to be the leader of the Sailor Scouts. The Crescent Moon Wand is a powerful treasure, and you must guard it until we find the Princess of the Moon.